A rich and delicious white chocolate and raspberry tart is on the menu for today. Welcome to Sweet Spot. The crunchy tart shell, 2 kinds of nuts. Pecans, almonds, butter, and a little bit of sugar. A thin layer of homemade raspberry jam smeared gently on top of the crust. Topped with a layer of white chocolate ganache made with the finest white chocolate. And finished with delicate fresh raspberries placed perfectly right on top. Let's get started. We're making a tart, so we need a tart pan. Finding one with a scalloped or fluted edge will leave us with a gorgeous crust. The key to success is a pan with a removable bottom. To prep the pan, we want to lightly but thoroughly butter it. I like to use a butter wrapper, but you can use wax paper or plastic wrap. Get each of the flutes, as well as the bottom. The nut crust for this tart can't be any simpler. You'll find this recipe and all of my recipes on sweetspotkitchen.com. See the link in the YouTube description below. We start with almonds and sugar. The almonds can be skin on or blanched. We process these until they're finely ground, but not powdery. Next in are our pecans. You could use walnuts, but that would make the crust taste walnutty. Both are nice, rich, and oily nuts. And process these until they're finely ground, but not a powder or a paste. These won't take as long. Gorgeous nuts. This next step of creaming our butter seems like a lot of work. You could use a hand mixer. I prefer to use a stand mixer, or I suppose you could do it in the food processor if you clean out the nuts first. Take the 2 minutes and let's do what we know works. In with the butter, 2 minutes on high. The butter is wonderfully creamed. Let's incorporate the vanilla. And the nuts. We want to mix these and it will make a paste. No flour in this tart shell means no rolling. This really is the easiest kind of tart shell to make. You simply put in the mixture and press it down. I use the bottom of a glass, working from the center to the edges, and then pull the nut mixture to the edges while turning the pan to form a nice thick edge. Work this until there are no gaps. This crust is gorgeous. We need to cover it with plastic wrap and plop it in the fridge for about an hour. While the tart shell's firming up in the fridge, we have time to make our quick raspberry jam. A little bit of sugar, more of these gorgeous raspberries, and a squeeze of lemon juice. Just a little bit, don't worry about the seeds, we're going to strain this. Onto the stove for about 8 to 10 minutes, medium heat. We want this to simmer, which will generate a lot of liquid as the juice is released from the berries. Then it will thicken, which is what we want. We've reduced the sauce. It's not too thick, so you can still pour it. Now we need to strain it. Straining it will remove any lemon seeds and all of the raspberry seeds. A couple sneak through, no big deal. Work these through. And when we're done, we need to scrape the bottom with a clean spatula to get all the raspberry jelly from the underside of the strainer. This is a quick way to make any sort of jam. Wow, look at all of these seeds. You know you could actually plant these, but nothing will grow. And when you've squeezed everything out you can, scrape the spatula inside the strainer and just scrape off the bottom to get the last bits of the jelly. The tart shell's well chilled, over an hour. Remove the plastic wrap because we don't want to bake with that on. Then we want to poke the tart shell with a fork so that it doesn't puff up while it bakes. Can't do too many pokes. Into the oven, 350 middle rack. After 8 to 12 minutes, we want to check it, see if it's puffed up. If it has, just push it back down with a fork. And then continue baking until it's golden brown on the top. I had to bake this an extra 2 minutes or so just to get the whole top evenly brown. You want to give it a little color, but not too much color. At this point, we're ready to put on the jam. With an offset spatula, spread the jam around. Spread it evenly, but don't go too far up the edges because we don't want it to show when we put on the white chocolate. Push the tart aside to let the jelly set a bit. In the meantime, let's chop our chocolate to make our ganache. I have a strong brand preference when it comes to white chocolate. A lot of people don't like eating white chocolate because it doesn't taste good. Well, that's because a lot of people aren't eating good white chocolate. Most brands of white chocolate in the grocery store are horrible. They're full of palm kernel oil instead of cocoa butter. You really want cocoa butter. And never, never use white chocolate chips because they're not white chocolate. They're palm kernel oil. And they taste terrible. They're overly sweet. Ugh, they're terrible. My brand preference for white chocolate is Lindt brand. It comes in these pretty blue boxes. This is not a paid endorsement, by the way. This chocolate is delicious. It's nice and milky and creamy. Oh my, you'll love it. We want to just coarsely chop the chocolate so that it melts more evenly in the cream. Just a rough chop is fine. We want to pour our cream into a heavy-duty pot. Put it on the stove or over low-medium heat and bring it to a simmer. The cream has just begun to simmer. Take it off the heat and put in your chopped white chocolate. And stir to melt the chocolate. At this point, you want to put your tart on a serving plate because later it's going to be a little more difficult because the tart will become delicate. Push up from the bottom. Using an offset spatula or a knife, you want to separate the shell from the tart pan. Once it's inserted, just carefully slide this around. Get all your edge off. And then the tart will just slide off. Without breaking. And now gently pour the white chocolate mixture on top of the jam. And this goes in the fridge for about 3 or 4 hours. And what's left is to place the raspberries ever so perfectly around the tart. This tart is naked no more, all dressed up with these bright red raspberries. And now my favorite part, the taste test. Beautiful, really luxurious looking. Crust has a crunch, I could feel it. Wow, blend of soft and hard. Crust is crunchy, kind of cookie-like. The offsetting sweetness of the white chocolate and the tartness of the raspberry. And the pecans. The pecan flavor really comes through. You know, if we had made this with walnuts rather than pecans, it would taste like walnuts rather than pecans. Fast fact. Really nice blend of textures. The crust is like a cookie. Not sweet by itself. Together, the flavors meld in your mouth. The white chocolate kind of dissolves. Super nutty. You could eat the crust by itself. And if you care, please note this recipe is gluten-free. There's no flour in it. It makes a gorgeous dessert, perfect for a party, great for entertaining. Definitely not overly sweet. All the sweetness is from the white chocolate layer, and the nuts add a richness and depth of flavor. If you enjoyed this recipe, give us a thumbs up. Appreciate any comment you have. If you're not a subscriber, now's the time to subscribe. Look for the full recipe in the link below. And until next time, this is it for Sweet Spot.